Hello there everyone, future feature film director, the Rookie Critic here today, and I'm going to be telling you about why I think that training is important to include in films. A lot of people had issues with the Star Wars sequel trilogy and how Rey doesn't train. If you ask, how come you don't like her, it's like, well, she's super powerful and we don't get to see her train. Now, people that don't really care about that will probably answer and go, well, why do you need to see her train? What does it matter? You want to see her lift some weights or something? You want to see her directly learn from teacher, this is how you do something, and then she does it? Like, what difference does that make? Why not skip it and just have her be as she is? Now, there's a lot of different ways that I can answer that, but the first one I'll say is that training is very important for character development, especially when it has to do with a new character that is presented to not know that much about what you're doing in this universe. The character did have some already base skills, like she knew how to fly, and she knew how to fix some things, and she knew how to fight, but she had no clue about what the Force was. She had no clue on a lot of things, and there's different fighting techniques than what she would have to use to scavenge. She might have to fight off a couple of, scavengers herself, but I mean, it's not like she has to fight actual trained warriors, understanding mystical powers of the Force, the science of it. There's a lot of things that can go on here with her character and training. Also with her experience, interacting with other characters that she would have never met on that planet. Things will go differently for her, but with that, without any training or any other experience and any growing, she just kind of strolls through the film just perfectly fine, and that's what a lot of us find to be quite annoying. Now I'm going to use some examples here. Like, let's look at the Karate Kid. With Daniel-san, he goes through a lot of growing within his training process. He thinks he's just doing manual labor, and it's just, why does he have me do all this stuff for him, whatever, when am I going to start the training, god dang it, but this whole time he's been training in and of itself. He's been applying an actual task and skill while training, building up his muscles, building up some motion techniques to actually apply into an art. And throughout this process also of his training, he was being able to bond with his master. The bonding with the master is part of it. Like, you grow as a character during training, you bond with the master, you learn certain skills, you are able to do so much when you show training in films. Let's also look at Dragon Ball Z. That show is mostly known for training. Training is like the main thing that goes on in that show. They had the main things going on, some ancillary stuff, a little bit of filler, and training. Those are like the main things that happen in Dragon Ball Z. And the reason why that's important, even going back to Dragon Ball, before Dragon Ball Z, training was always something important to do. Like, before Master Roshi would teach Goku and Krillin actual martial arts moves, he would have them train doing similar to in the Karate Kid with, Daniel-san doing all the tasks and wax on, wax off, paint the fence, all that. He had them do similar things, doing different exercises to work out their muscles and to do things. They're able to, develop a rivalry with each other, somewhat of a respect for when they actually do start learning how to fight. There's a lot that you can develop when you are showing training.
Before we begin, there is something very important you boys should know.
What?
We do not learn martial arts to pick fights or to impress girls who will say, "Oh, Beefcake, you're so strong, I want you." However, if somebody evil threatens you or any other good, innocent people with unethical force, it is your duty to defend.
When we see Luke training in Empire Strikes Back, we already knew that in A New Hope, he was the new guy on the block. He was the new kid. He doesn't have all these skills. The only main skill he already had was that he was a good pilot. That's pretty much it. And I think they do a good job showing that he's not the best shot around with his blaster. He doesn't really know how to use a lightsaber that well yet. And then you cut to Empire Strikes Back. It's like a year or 2 or 3 later. I actually don't know. I didn't check that. But it's a couple years later, and he's learned a little bit more Force techniques that we didn't see yet, but, it's understandable that with time, you'd at least learn some basic extensions of something. He learned how to tap into the Force a little bit in A New Hope, and then a couple years later, he can, with concentration, do a little bit of telekinesis to get his lightsaber into his hand, which is something, and some people point to Luke as being some kind of Gary Stu, which I would disagree. Again, based on what we see in the movies, I would disagree with that completely. And, when he goes to Dagobah to train with Yoda, and he's already got this different attitude. He just wants to kind of rush through. Come on, let's go. I want to find the Master. I want to train to be a Jedi. I want to beat Vader, and I want to save the galaxy and everything. Blah, 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 hunky-dory. But no, Yoda has him kind of learn some patience, teaches him, to apply some, physical stuff. He teaches him how to, relax and, just understand the environment a little. He went through a lot of different methods to train Luke. That whole time that they are there, he is basically training him. Even if you wouldn't call that training, you are growing, you are learning, you are becoming more than what you were. And we're able to see that as the audience. We're able to learn with him. We're able to see his progression, his change from how he was to where he is. And by the end of the film, when he goes and confronts Vader, thinking that he can just do it because he's Luke Skywalker, he gets a newsflash. A more experienced person will beat you. And that's what happened. And he had to suffer consequences. He lost a hand, and he got the crap beat out of him, basically. And he, technically didn't even need to go there, and they would have escaped just fine regardless. And I'm hoping that people can start to see my point by now, and that, when we see Rey in this sequel trilogy, it's very disappointing when we know that she's a new character to this universe and to this stuff, and she just strolls through, no problem. She hardly faces any adversity. When she's fighting the Royal Red Guards of Snoke, it would be nice if that was somewhat of a challenge to her, but it's just like, I'm a tough, just kick. One kick knocks 3 back. It just is really ridiculous. Now, it makes sense in context of what we all know about the characters, that Kylo is an experienced Jedi/Sith and has experience with swords and, and knows how to fight. So him doing well against them would make sense. Her doing well, or just as good, that's very confusing to understand because we don't see any training from her. And this is back-to-back movies from the first one to this one. There was no gap. If there was at least a year or 2 years, even months in between Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, we could kind of suspend our disbelief. Okay, maybe she learned a few tricks. Maybe she learned a few things and she can do some of these tasks. But that's also kind of hard to say because she also, as an inexperienced one, kind of beat Kylo on their first dueling match. But there is a lot of stuff to stack against that Kylo was weakened, therefore she was able to overcome. But whatever. I'm not trying to talk about that today necessarily. But when we see Rey training in the Rise of Skywalker, we do see her do a training run. She just does an obstacle course. She does an obstacle course, which you could say is training, but that is not. We didn't get any benefits from training. Like what I listed before, you're able to grow with the character. We don't get anything out of her watching her just do an obstacle course. That's not what we mean that we want to see. When we say we want to see her train, we want to see the character grow while she is training. You could have had her, in a lot of the books or a lot of the other Star Wars mediums, when they have Jedi train, they're usually sent to do some kind of an actual task that can kind of put their life in danger, and it's up to them to overcome these things with will and to get over fears and be able to accomplish it and walk out as an experienced mastered person. Not mastered, but an experienced person. You've grown. With her, with doing the obstacle course, we don't see any growth. In fact, we see her act like a child. She starts out just floating around with rocks. There's no gain from this when we see her train. We don't get to see her character grow. We don't see her interactions with her master grow. I know that they attempted and they couldn't really do it because of Carrie Fisher not being around, but they could have had anyone else be an influence for her, of some kind of warrior. Does anyone know how to do anything other than fly or something? Does anyone have any other skills? No one knows how to fight. No one has any other types of attributes that she can learn from. I don't know. That's one of the things that kind of bugs me also with this. She doesn't really learn from anybody, really. I mean, they attempt to tell us that she learns from people, but we don't get to see any of that ourselves. We're satisfied when we see Luke do something because we see him learn it. We see him realize. We see Goku in Dragon Ball realize. We see Daniel's son realize stuff. With her, she just, okay, this is what it is. It just, things are just always presented and around there for her. And we're just, they literally took, you just want to see her lift weights, to literally having her just run an obstacle course and just ignore all the basic elements that make training sequences work in movies. I think that's all that I have to say about this. I'm by no means an expert in the subject, but that's how I really feel about training sequences in films. They are much more important than people would give them credit for, and I feel like, you can't just label working out as training. There's more to training than just working out. So that's all I have to say. I hope I didn't repeat myself too much, and have a great rest of your day. Hey there, movie lovers and potential GoFundMe backers. I'm on YouTube trying to gain experience to become a feature film director someday. I'm working on a film project called The Rookie's Legends, set to release sometime this summer of 2020. With modern entertainment constantly being rebooted, retconned, hijacked, overused, and lacking passion, a villain plans to unleash the gods of cinema to destroy all of film history and restart it for herself. It's up to the Rookie and his band of small YouTubers to protect the legacy of film history as we know it. If you would like an example of this style of film, check out my Rookie's Quest trilogy. If you would like to help fund the project and be credited as a producer, the link to my GoFundMe is in the description below, along with my Patreon and PayPal. Thank you all for listening, and have a great rest of your day.